Hello everybody, welcome to Also Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already and drop a like on this video. I'm trying to hit 100k on this channel by the end of the year, so your subscription would be much appreciated, especially if you're someone who's been watching my main channel for a while. You've come to this channel, seen a few videos, like just subscribe so you can see those other videos as well. So that was a game. It's an interesting game. What was the final score? It didn't crack 80. It did crack 80 for both teams, right? Somewhere around there. This game was a whole lot of defense, but also a whole lot of missing. So it ends at 84-80. I know at one point in the game, at one point in the fourth quarter, both teams were a combined 6 for 34. So definitely not a very high volume scoring day for either of these teams. Now, the Clippers in the first half were terrible. Like, I don't think did they crack 40? They didn't crack 40, I don't think. I think the Suns had 50-something, and the Clippers were like at 36, 38, something like that. So they didn't crack 40 in the first half. Paul George shot 7 threes in the first quarter and made one of them. Overall, their offense just looked incredibly stagnant. I was really paying attention to their offense in particular as it was struggling today, because it was like, there's really just no stuff here. Like, it was Reggie Jackson, he'll call a screen, and then there will be a pick and roll, and Paul George will call a screen, and there'll be a pick and roll, and the other three players on the floor will just stand and watch. Like, there is no complexity to their offensive system whatsoever. And as much praise as we've been giving Tyronn Lue for making smart adjustments here and there, I feel like we should look at the fact that their offense is basic as shit. And as a result, when shots are not dropping and you already have a basic offense, you're not going to generate that many easy looks, and as a result, the cycle is just going to continue. You don't get good shots, you don't make shots, you continue to miss shots, you go cold, you fucking lose. That being said, a second half comes around, and the Clippers look more alive. Not from adjustments or suddenly there's more of a system. In fact, one play in particular stood out to me. I was like, wow, really, nobody does anything off ball on this team. And that was in the second half. But the Clippers offense definitely picked it up more in the third quarter. They actually looked like a basketball team. They actually looked like a conference finals caliber team. Well, not really, just because obviously they're not nearly as good as they are with Kawhi. But, you know, a pretty respectable basketball team is what they looked like. But then the fourth quarter comes around. And at that point, the Suns had about a 1-point lead for 8 years. Yeah, I think that's right. About 8 years, the Suns had a 1-point lead, and the Clippers just could not get over that 1-point deficit. My dad actually started counting how many field goal attempts that the Clippers had that could have either tied or taken the lead in this game. And it got to the point where there was literally 15 shots in a row that didn't go in. So that tells you how it was going for the Clippers. But on the Sun side of things, they completely cooled down in the second half. I mean, they weren't even that great in the first half. I think they had like 55-ish in the first half. Chris Paul was not making shots. That continued in the second half. Devin Booker was really good in the first half, and DeAndre Ayton was good throughout this game. But Booker was great the first half, especially by comparison to what he did in Game 3, which I'll give a pass because of injury, even though Booker didn't give himself that pass. But he was terrible in the second half, and it gradually got a little bit better, but he was still terrible. Chris Paul was bad throughout this entire game. There were some stretches where it looked like he had things in control, but overall, yet another game where he shoots below 30% from the field. That being said, just because everybody played poorly, I'm not going to give too much crap to anybody for their field goal percentage in this one. Who I will give praise to, however, is DeAndre Ayton, because he played a masterful game here. Not just because he's the only guy who had an efficient nearly 20-point game. He definitely had the best game amongst the Suns players here. But defensively, he was fantastic. He also got a whole lot of second chance opportunities. That's the one thing that comes out of there being a lot of misses, that there's also a lot of offensive rebounds, because Ayton in this game, he had 9 offensive rebounds. Last I had checked, it was 6, so we got 3 more after that. 9 offensive rebounds. That's fucking fantastic. He had 22 rebounds in total, protected the basket very well. One play in particular where it wasn't a block, but he just recovered really well on Patrick Beverley. A couple of different blocks in this one. It says that he has 4. They said in the game he had 5, but whatever. Just fantastic game from DeAndre, and on both sides of the floor. He had one alley-oop that looked impossible that he finished. A couple of putback layups, things like that. In total for this game, and it wasn't entirely just Ayton on the boards. There were, where is it? Where is the offensive rebounds? There were 17 offensive rebounds in this game for the Suns and 15 for the Clippers. So if I'm doing math correctly, that's 32 offensive rebounds. I don't know what the average amount of offensive rebounds in an NBA game is, but I would wager it's not 32. So that was definitely a big factor in this game. On the Clippers side of things, I of course mentioned that their offense was terrible at the start. Once again, Marcus Morris brings absolutely nothing of value to this team when, you would hope that he'd step up in the absence of Kawhi Leonard. He just was terrible in this game once again. All these fucking contested pull-up shots that he just does not make. He's had moments in his career where he's made those shots, but he hasn't been making them as of late. Not really that many three-point attempts, not as many as you'd like, being that he shot as well as he did from 3 earlier on in the playoffs and in the regular season. Patrick Beverley didn't do jack shit offensively, though he did play great defense on Devin Booker, so I'll give him the pass there. Zubac actually played really well. This game was actually quite a bit of big men influence, and it was also quite a bit of mid-range pull-up action, especially late in this game. I believe there was a Chris Paul mid-range shot. I know for a fact there were 1 or 2 Booker ones. He had a lot of them in the first half as well. He also had one where Zubac was half an inch away from blocking, and it was glamorous. He also had a floating layup like that. But I know Reggie Jackson hit one. I know Booker hit one. And we also got a battle of big men. So just to summarize real quick, we got an 80-84 score in the conference finals where the 2 best players for both teams, or at least the 2 most reliable and consistent ones, were the centers, where we saw a lot of mid-range pull-ups. That's, that's some 2000s basketball shit. That's some 90s basketball shit. So if you're an old head and you watch this game, you probably would have appreciated that. Maybe a little bit of nostalgia for you. That being said, these teams did get the three-pointers up because the Clippers shot 31, and wow, the Suns only shot 20? Okay, that makes sense. The Clippers definitely felt like they were putting up more, but I'm surprised they only put up 20. And they made 4 of those 20. Nice, 420, nice. But yeah, so overall, though, this game did have a very old school feel. Now, let's talk about what this means for the series as a whole because, well, actually, no. I have to talk about some specifics here. I almost grained over that just to talk about the general here. The officiating in this game sucked. And as I mentioned before, I'm not one to complain about officiating. And I'm not claiming any bias here. I think there are a lot of people being like, oh, the Suns were getting screwed. Oh, the Clippers were getting screwed. It was just terrible officiating. Now, probably the biggest missed call of this game was that it really looked like the inbound pass was tipped off of Batum, or was tipped by Batum and then went off of Cameron Payne, but they didn't review it. That was probably off of Payne, and that would have made a world of difference in this game, assuming that the Clippers had an opportunity to execute. Even if they wouldn't have actually done it, they should have had the opportunity to do it for sure. And then instead it was the free throw game late. There was also a play where Chris Paul just slowed down a little bit on a break, and then what's his name? Patrick Beverley ran into him, and it was called an offensive foul on Chris Paul, which I thought was ludicrous. There was a play where it was tipped out of bounds by, I believe it was Bridges who was off of. This is in the last 30 seconds of the game. And they called a jump ball on where neither team had any established possession whatsoever. What people were telling me on Twitter is that they did that so that they could review it. But you're allowed to review it without that call. We saw them in game 2 review fucking every out of bounds thing. So why did you have to call a jump ball where there was obviously not one and then be okay, now we're reviewing it, it's off of Bridges? That was just very confusing to me. I'm sure it's happened before and there's some reason to it, but I was losing my mind. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean the ruling on the floor is a jump ball? Nobody was grabbing the ball. It was just tipped around. So that was stupid. There's a lot of other things that are stupid that happened in this game officiating wise. So that's worth mentioning. I wanted to point it out. Late game though, it really just became a whole lot of free throws, whole lot of fouling. DeMarcus Cousins got fouled off of a loose ball by Dario Saric, and then that resulted in him getting free throws, and then he tried to miss the second one, but missed it so off that it was illegal because you have to hit the rim. And then later on, similar situation, Paul George misses his second shot. They try to follow it up. It's basically a fucking dog pile at the rim. The ball gets tipped out to Chris Paul, and he hits the free throws. That's game. So yeah, that pretty much summarizes it. It was a very sloppy and disorganized game, and very all over the place, and defense, just rough offense, not dirty play, doing the dirty work. That's the right way to say it. A lot of stuff like that in this game, and I appreciated that. I enjoy both modern basketball, where the score can be 120 to 125, but I also enjoy a grit and grind type of thing, and that's what this game was absolutely. So as for the series as a whole, which I was going to go into, but I forgot I had to mention that, the Clippers are obviously down 3-1 now. And if Kawhi Leonard doesn't come back, they're done. I mean, what else do you want me to say? I mean, already being down 3-1 is bad. And there's a real chance Kawhi Leonard comes back, and he's really not that good if he does come back. So they're probably done. And that's unfortunate. I think I've mentioned this before, I want the Clippers to win because I want an excuse to go on a trip to Los Angeles. So yeah, that's just unfortunate. Their injury is going to be a huge factor in this series. That Kawhi Leonard, if he played the series, I would have picked the Clippers to win it, but that didn't happen. So the Suns are now probably going to be making the finals, which is awesome because the Suns are my favorite team in this series. And I want a Suns-Bucks finals, even though I want to go to LA. So it's really just my personal fucking wanting to go on a trip, not my actual basketball stuff. Nicholas is texting me in the middle of this, and it's really confusing me. If you're watching this, Nick, dude, bad timing. Congrats to him, by the way. Hit 20K. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling at the end of this thing. That's what this entire fucking channel is, just me fucking rambling, so you know what you signed up for. But yeah, that is the video, I guess. The Clippers are fucked. Goodbye.